Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. It's Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. He's at home. I'm at home. The lighting is amazing, and we are talking to you on the same morning that Purdue moved to number one in the CBS Sports Top 25 and 1, which is the result of two things from Tuesday night. One, Purdue blasted Florida State, and then a couple of hours later, two, Ohio State upset Duke. So Purdue is now number one in the top 25 and 1. Duke is number 2. Gonzaga is number 3. And we're going to get to the Boilermakers eventually, I promise. But I'm compelled to start with what happened inside Value City Arena, because that's where Mike Krzyzewski, who is, by the way, coaching in his final season at Duke. He'll be replaced by John Shire. He suffered his first loss of his final season and the first court storming in his final season at Duke. Deadleg, I'm not trying to brag, but who predicted way back in the preseason a court storming would happen after Ohio State Duke played in Columbus? Was it, I'll give you some options. Was it me or me or me?
It was definitely you. I don't know. I haven't had time to go back and listen to it because I wanted to listen because I can't remember if I put on the table over under, and the listeners will certainly know, over under 3.5 court storms on Duke and K this season, or if it was 4.5. I believe you went under and I went over. I think that's what happened. But you did accurately predict Ohio State. I have no idea whether I did or not, but I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is you called it. You called it, and Coach K's final non-conference game of his career on the road will end in a loss. And by the way,
that's going to be part of his legacy, by the way. When people are talking about this 20 years later, they'll be like, listen, he won some championships and he won a lot of games, but it's worth pointing out he did fail in his final non-league road game of his career.
Not only that, what else is the media afraid to talk about this morning? It's the fact that Mike Krzyzewski is going to start and finish clearly a very good career without having coached a team to an undefeated season. You know, that's over. It's over for him.
Yeah. Let's talk about all the things Mike Krzyzewski has never done in his career. Hey, career record against Chris Holtmann? 0-1.
Is it? That was the first game? Okay.
I looked it up last night. 0-1. Against unless they meet in the NCAA tournament, and at this point, are we sure K's going to be able to get there?
Oh,
unless they meet in the NCAA tournament, Chris Holtmann will retire with a undefeated record against Mike Krzyzewski, 1-0 all time.
For everyone watching on the live YouTube stream, hello. Give us a few minutes to give Chris Holtmann some credit, okay? We got to start with Duke. Don't worry, we'll get there with Ohio State. If you are watching on YouTube, hello and thank you. Reminder, if you don't follow us on Twitter and don't get the alerts, you need to go and
nobody gets the alerts.
They do, though. That's the thing, is that it works. The alerts work. They do work. And if you aren't on Twitter, which plenty of listeners are not, but you'd like to watch the live stream in real time, be sure to go to the episode description on this podcast. Nada, who some people think is not real, he will have a link in the podcast description so you can subscribe to the channel and get a heads up. Our next podcast is scheduled to be live at 10 a.m. Friday morning. That is East Coast time. As for the game, Parrish, it felt like both teams played, like a B to B minus level. It felt like Duke kind of went through the motions a little bit. I'm going to have you talk about your guy, Paolo Banchero, because he didn't have the kind of game I expected him to, and we'll give plenty of shine to EJ Liddell as well. But this felt like Duke almost they let him hang around a little too long, and they wound up paying for it in the end. It was I was a bit surprised by the way Duke allowed Ohio State to really close the gap and then overtake them in the final couple of minutes.
Well, the wild thing is that they clearly let them hang around, but there was a point in the game where they weren't hanging around at all. They were down 13 at the half, 15 in the second half. And I saw this bouncing around on Twitter Tuesday night. I'm going to assume it's true. Entering Tuesday night, Duke had won 185 games in a row with a double-digit lead at halftime. It was the longest active streak in Division I. They were up 13 at the half at Ohio State, up by as many as 15 in the second half, and they lose that game. So it wasn't just that they let Ohio State hang around. It's that they just blew a 15-point lead in the second half and couldn't score in the final 4:29. Literally didn't score in the final 4:29 of the game. Trevor Kills makes a free throw, 4:29 left. Duke goes up 66-59. And that's the last time Duke scored in the game. What? Duke missed its last 6 shots, and Ohio State closed the game on a 12-0 run over the final 4:28 to win the game 71-66. Like, everything about that is excessive. Like, scoring 12 points in a span of 4:28 is excessive for a college basketball team. Holding somebody to 0 points over a span of 4:28 is excessive for a college basketball team. And yet that's what happened on Tuesday night to, allow Ohio State to get a signature win in a court storming and obviously cost Duke the number 1 ranking in the country.
Nada, if you could hold that box score on the screen for a couple more here on the YouTube stream. Look at what, for everyone watching along in real time, look at Duke personal fouls. Moore with 4, Roach with 4, Banchero with 4, Mark Williams with 4, and then Theo John winds up fouling out. This is not exactly an analog to the Gonzaga game, but Gonzaga was dealing with this exact thing. It had a lot of its guys with 4 fouls dealing with foul trouble down the stretch. That didn't help matters for Duke, on top of why it wasn't able to score. Sometimes coaches will tell you, if you've got key guys in foul trouble late, it can impact your ability to run the kind of offense you want to run. And guys just start playing differently. I certainly thought that was the case to an extent with Duke overall. Banchero, 14 points on 4-14 shooting, was not the same kind of world-shifting player that we saw for some of the Gonzaga game before the cramps issue surfaced. Did you hear, by the way, I don't believe this. This cannot be true. Did you hear Billa say on the telecast that Banchero loses 7 pounds in a game? 7 pounds over 2 hours? That seems like it could put a normal human being in the hospital. There's no way that can be accurate, right? If you told me like 2 or 3 pounds, I can see it. 7 pounds in 2 hours?
Well, I believe it was Holly Rose reporting, and I'm not gonna be skeptical of Holly's reporting. If what she said was that there had been some tests run on Paolo because he's cramped in the 2 biggest games of the year. So they ran some tests like, what's going on here? This doesn't make sense. You're 19 years old. You're physically fit. Why are you cramping all the time? And what they said they found was that he loses roughly 7 pounds per game, which is the first time in 20 years I've thought about playing basketball again.
Oh, really?
I'd be like, I'd love to lose 7 pounds. I'd play some back-to-backs. I'd love to lose 7 pounds playing a game. So he's now drinking a special oxygenated drink during games that prevents cramping. I drink vodka while I'm watching him, and he drinks an oxygenated drink to avoid cramping. But even with that, he wasn't great last night. He was 4-14 from the field, 14 points, 5 rebounds. And by the way, like this maybe incredible stretching it, but very good Duke class. I mean, it could have 3 first-round picks, these 5-star freshmen. Paolo was 4-14. Trevor Kills was 3 of 12. AJ Griffin 0 of 1 in just 2 minutes. He's not even getting on the court. So Duke's 3 5-star freshmen combined to go 7 of 27 from the field at Ohio State. When you get nothing or very little from your first-year stars, you're just more or less the same mediocre team you were last season with a better version of Wendell Moore.
But you're not going that far. We're not going from here's why Duke has to be the number 1 team in the country to this is just a mild step up from the team that missed the tournament a year ago.
No. You miss hearing what I said.
No, I'm trying to help you for the listeners who might be like, oh, okay, Parrish. Okay, we suddenly are all off Duke now. I was just trying to.
No. I have Duke number 2 in the top 25 and 1. I'm saying that a lot of that is that Paolo's got to be great, and Trevor Kills has to be as good as he was. Maybe not as good as he was against Kentucky, but he's got to be good. And AJ Griffin, I mean, he hasn't given you anything all year, but in theory, you're expecting to get something from him at some point. Like, those are the 3 5-star freshmen. Those are 3 possible, if not probable, in some cases definite, first-round draft picks. And against Ohio State, this is my point, they didn't really give you anything positive, too much positive. And when they don't do that, Duke's not very good.
Last note on Duke, David Cobb, who did our takeaways piece off of this upset on CBSSports.com last night. You can read that on the CBS Sports app if you choose while you listen to the podcast. He noted, and rightfully so, Duke is has a big flaw with its 3-point shooting. It's 32.8%. That's 194th in the country right now. And if it doesn't fix that, there's going to be a certain ceiling on this team. I think that's accurate to say. Duke was 35% from the field last season, so it was a better 3-point shooting team on the whole last season than it is through 8 games. That's an important distinction to make right now. So far this season, Duke has not been typical Duke in recent seasons in terms of its 3-point shooting. The last time Duke finished inside the top 25 from 3-point range was the 2015-2016 season. We'll wait and see. I think this is a situation where when you have an 8-game sample size, we do have a general idea. Right now, Duke is just a nick under 33% from beyond the arc. I think your best case scenario, if you're a Duke fan, is that you can get that up to, say, 36% by the time end of February comes. You could have a hot game or two that wind up that going your way from beyond the arc and get you a win. But big picture, if you think that this team is going to go from a team that shoots 33% through 8 games that includes major conference competition in that stretch, and that's going to switch to you looking up and then being just under 40% by the time the tournament goes, that would be statistically aberrational to the point where we almost never see that. So just keep that in mind with Duke. Certainly they've got a lot there. I still think that this is a top 5 team in the country. No, I'm not. We never try and overreact to one single game. But I couldn't help but notice. Last night as I watched, I thought, you know what? They aren't as reliable from beyond the arc as maybe they hoped they would be, and that could be something that ultimately, comes to bite them once we get to postseason play.
Real quick on the top 25 and 1, because I actually filed it late last night and tweeted it late after midnight at some point. I was up. I figured if I can allow Jerry Palm to wake up to a tweet that says Purdue is number 1 in the top 25, or Julie Villanova or Drew Brees, then I should probably do that. And so I did. And when I woke up this morning, I had some replies to it like, "Oh, Duke only drops to number 2." Well, let me explain that real quick. I don't want to drop Duke. First off, Duke was only a 3-point favorite at Ohio State. This wasn't like they lost a game they were so clearly supposed to win. And they were up 15 points in the second half, and then they don't score in the final 4:29, and it's a problem. But I'm from my perspective, like, AP voters can do whatever they want, and they often do. Like, there's this one guy who moved Memphis up 2 spots this past Monday, even after Memphis got blasted by 19 by Iowa State. Like, what do you want me to do? I used to write the Politics column. People told me I was being mean. I tried to stop, and now what do you get? A bunch of AP voters acting like idiots again. I tried to fix them. I did my best to fix them, but then I had to step away. I was told I was being mean. I said, fine, I'll stop being mean. Now what do you got? AP voters acting like idiots again. So they'll do whatever they do, but I try to be sensible. So I didn't think it made any sense to drop Duke below Gonzaga, considering it was just a few nights ago we watched Duke win a neutral court game against Gonzaga. So you're locked in a little bit. Like, I don't want to drop Duke below Gonzaga, and I don't want to drop Gonzaga below UCLA, which is a team they just blasted on a neutral court. So the only way to keep that sensible is Purdue 1, Duke 2, Gonzaga 3, and then whatever I got after that. And so sometimes people get so caught up on how many spots somebody rises or drops. I never, ever look at it that way. I don't, well, you lose this game, you must drop 6 spots. You lose this game, you must drop 10 spots. You lose this game, you must drop 3 spots. I don't think of it like that. I go, okay, based on all of the data available now, where's a sensible place to put this team? And for Duke at this point, I really do think it's number 2, 1 spot ahead of Gonzaga.
As for Ohio State, this is a vintage win for this program in this regard. Like, I don't think this is going to be the team that finishes first in the Big Ten, probably not second, but this win is going to wind up. This is a seed bump kind of win. That's right.
First mention of a seed bump of the season.
Seed line bump. There we go. It
took you to December to get there. That's pretty good.
In fact, it did. But here's what I think is going to happen with Ohio State. It's going to drop a couple games it probably shouldn't drop, and it'll get some good wins in Big Ten league play. But this will be the win where, I don't know if this will be a 2 seed this season, but if it winds up on the 3 line, it'll look back on a game like this, and hopefully the Duke win ages pretty well. The stats coming out of OSU and their historical performance against number 1 seeds are absurd, Parrish. Ohio State as a program overall is 10-11 versus the number 1 ranked team in the AP top 25. That's insane. In fact, give credit to ESPN Stats and Info on this. Ohio State has gone 8-3 in its last 11 games against number one ranked teams, and that dates back to 1978 when it also beat a number one ranked Duke team. They did this without Justice Suing, no Seth Towns off the bench. Marvelous stuff. Cedric Russell, the transfer from Louisiana, had his first good game of the season, and damn, did he pick a good game to have it. Zed Key was the best player on the floor for OSU, no doubt about that.
Zed is dead.
Well, not this one, because he was as good as you could have possibly expected him to be in the post, going up against Williams after Williams had the game that he had against Gonzaga there. OSU outscored Duke 41-23 in the second half, and as Parrish mentioned earlier, Duke's offense just it evaporated. Shouts to Ben Folds. It evaporated.
Oh wow, we are live. Anyway, you realize we can't cut that out. We're live right now. That's gonna live. That's gonna live forever.
I'm completely fine with it. Right. Didn't warm up the vocals this morning though. Anyway, great closing track off of Whatever and Ever Amen. Again, shouts to Ben Folds 5. Duke dropping to 2. That's probably where they should be. Ohio State with this kind of win. Where do you know off the top of your head? Where did you bump them to? Because you would have had them, unranked coming in?
I did not have them unranked. I had them ranked, and I moved them up to number 21, one spot behind Iowa State. Again, trying to be sensible here. Ohio State is a 2-loss team. The 2 losses are to Florida and Xavier. Iowa State is a 0-loss team with a win over Xavier. So keep Iowa State at 20, move Ohio State to 21, which pushes Memphis and Alabama down one spot each. No fault of their own.
No fault of their own whatsoever. By the way, Duke's prior 2 games when it was the number 1 ranked team, it lost significant leads in the second half. Stephen F. Austin won at home and then against Ohio State. We'll see if Duke can get back to number 1 because the ACC, as we're going to get to in a bit, it's down, and I don't know the next time Duke will have a game that will be against a team that's as significant as this. They're going to play some road games that'll be quad ones and all that. Don't get me wrong, but not having a stronger non-conference schedule could wind up coming to bite Duke in the butt just a little bit there. But yes, in all sincerity, great win for Chris Holtmann. That building is extremely hard to truly fill up, and I don't know if last night was a sellout. Maybe I was kind of coming in and out on the telecast there because I was on the phone working on the court report, which is up later on Wednesday at cbssports.com. So at certain points I had the game muted and certain points I didn't. So I don't know if they mentioned if it was a sellout or not, but it's the building is too huge for the program. Anyone that knows and follows Ohio State basketball is aware of that. They wish they could have an arena that was 6,000 or 7,000 seats smaller so they could have a more intimate environment. I've never been there. You have. You talked about it. It's cavernous. But when you get a team like Duke coming in for a game like this and you can really fill up the joint, that's obviously a good home court advantage. I won't say a great one, but a good one there. And it was great to see that program have that moment, Holtmann to get this kind of win. And I'm not surprised by it whatsoever. And good on Ohio State to rebound after losing what was one of the 5 best games of the season, in my opinion, when they lost to Florida in the Fort Myers tip-off at the buzzer, Tyree Appleby. OSU comes back. They got a big game in a big spot that can really help their resume. They get it done. And EJ Liddell's shot with, I think, 16 seconds to go, just, vintage onions to give them that little bit of the cushion down the stretch there and get them the win. That's huge for OSU. Obviously big for the Big Ten, which is having some struggles this season. The ACC is in a much worse spot. And as I said, we'll get to that in just a little bit.
And evidence that Chris Holtmann isn't only a great coach, but also a great man is that he did the halftime interview with Holly Rowe down 13 points. As a professional sideline reporter, let me tell you how that usually works. The way it works with normal teams and normal coaches is that you get the coach who is leading at halftime coming off the court because he's happy. Usually he's up. And then you get the other coach walking out of the tunnel or walking through the tunnel after halftime off camera. So a few weeks ago, I do College of Charleston, North Carolina game. Charleston's up at the half. I talked to Pat Kelsey at halftime on camera. He's fired up. It's great. And then I wait outside North Carolina's locker room. And when Hubert Davis comes out, I walk with Hubert and ask him a couple of questions while we're walking off camera. And then they come to me and under with the throw being, and Gary Parrish just talked to Hubert Davis. Gary, what did North Carolina's coach tell you? Whatever it is. And so I noticed this last night. Ohio State's getting blasted. And there's Chris Holtmann pleasantly talking to Holly Rowe because presumably Mike Krzyzewski just refuses to do it, just won't participate. like basically every other coach in America does. He just will not participate in that moment. And so Chris Holtmann's got to sit there and talk to Holly on camera, down 13 points at the half, and he couldn't have handled it any better. He was just pleasant and nice because he's a good man and a great coach, and it was nice to see him have that moment last night.
What else should we get to, GP?
Well, Ohio State Duke was the prominent game in Tuesday night's late window, if that's the way we're framing these things. But Purdue Florida State is how we got things started. We'll talk about the top-ranked Boilermakers next, but first, check this out. So Duke was upset in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Purdue was not. The Boilermakers blasted Florida State 93-65. Yes, Florida State was shorthanded, down 3 players, starting point guard out, starting center out. But that really, at least in my eyes, didn't make what Purdue did any less impressive. They were up 16 at the half. They won by 28. So Matt Painter's team is now 7-0 with 3 top 50 KenPom wins and ranked number 1 in the top 25 and 1. Dead leg on a scale of 1 to safe and consensual premarital sex. How excited are you from Matt Painter's program on the verge of, forget the top 25 and 1 for a moment, moving to number 1 in the Associated Press AP poll, in the Associated Press top 25 poll for the first time in school history? They can do that on Monday, long as they beat Iowa later on this week.
You love your unconventional scales. One to just don't put anything but a number at the end of it there. So you said on a scale of 1 to safe, consensual premarital sex. Is that
right? 1 is you just sitting around not doing anything.
Okay.
Just like nothing.
Okay.
And then 10 would represent safe and consensual premarital sex. Where are you at on that scale as it pertains to Purdue possibly moving to number 1 in the AP poll on Monday?
Give me like a 5.374. I think somewhere. Yeah, I think somewhere right around there. I don't necessarily. I don't outwardly root for Purdue. Obviously, don't root for anyone specifically other than the people that think I root for Duke. And you can go meet up with the people that think I hate Duke in a parking lot, by the way.
I root for lots of different things.
I believe we had someone in our live comments saying when Duke loses, it's a 10-second clip and then the media moves on. Just so we are clear, we spent 20 minutes on Duke losing at the start of this podcast.
People, like somebody tweeted me about this yesterday. They were like, I don't know why Purdue fans think you hate Purdue. I listened to you and it seems like you're always saying nice things about Purdue. And here's the truth with that, which is why I don't really pay it much attention. There are weirdos in basically every fan base that have wild ideas about who hates what and why. And I can just tell you, as somebody who has been the target of this for a long time, it's almost never true. There are, people I don't like, and there are people I do like, but the number of people I don't like or would privately like to see not do well is it's almost non-existent. It basically is non-existent. Nothing that happens in a basketball game impacts my happiness or sadness in any way whatsoever. And so this idea that Norlander hates this team and Parrish hates this team, or Norlander loves this guy, and it's just almost never rooted in reality, but it doesn't stop some people from alleging it. But it's almost always goofy.
Yeah. Apparently, I hate Arkansas. You heard it here first in the YouTube live chat. So we can go ahead.
Guy from Connecticut who's probably never been to Arkansas hates Arkansas.
I mean, everyone knows you hate Marquette, but that's just a different thing altogether. No, listen, Purdue. The only reason why I would be happy if Purdue continued to be good was I pick them to win the national championship in the preseason. Obviously, we would like to be correct about our forecast there. So Purdue continuing to be good reflects well on my preseason rankings when I had Purdue number 2 and Gonzaga number 1, and GP rightfully has the Boilermakers number 1. And the only thing that stands in the way, of course, is that home game against the undefeated Iowa Hawkeyes, who have managed to get to 7-0 and are looking pretty good. That's not a gimme there. I mean, I don't think anyone had Iowa getting to 7-0 at this point. They won on Monday at Virginia 75-74. Joe Toussaint hit a running bank shot in the closing seconds to finish it off, and it was a really good performance by Iowa because they were up big. Virginia came back and made a really strong push to the point where you thought, like, everyone was burying Virginia in the first half on Twitter and all that stuff, and then Tony Bennett's team, they really got it together, and I thought, is UVA going to really pull this out? Didn't. We'll get some more on the ACC again in just a second. This is like the biggest tease I've ever made on this podcast. The segment's not going to be that great, but we are going to talk about how the
ACC... Hey, we're going to crap on the ACC before we get out of here. So, just hang around, and we'll tell you how bad the ACC sucks. I promise we're getting there.
The point is Iowa did win the game, and now they're 7-0. They've got a top 5 offense, and that looks to be a wonderful game. We'll preview more of it, I guess, on Friday. Maybe we'll touch upon it a little bit because that game is Friday night. But Purdue 7-0, number 1 offense in America. I did see this stat get pushed around by ESPN as well on SVP show late on Tuesday night. Purdue's only one of 3 teams in the past 2 decades to have a 7-game streak where it has at least 80 points on at least 50% shooting from the field and 35% from 3. What do you want from me? This is the best offensive team in America, and I think that it can be the best team in America. I would take Purdue right now on a neutral over any other team in the country. Defensively, I thought, even though Florida State was shorthanded, I thought this was a good sign. Held the Noles to 65 points. Yes, Purdue was at home. Yes, Purdue has a top 10 home court advantage in college basketball. If you talk to other coaches that have had to play in that building, they fill it up well. Great student section, set up the whole deal. They're going to have a great advantage in that building, particularly in a season when the hopes are high. They do have national championship I don't know if you want to say direct expectations, but yes, there's a feeling that this team can win the national championship, and it's on the doorstep of making program history. And if it can win against Iowa, it will be the first time in school history that it's ever been number 1 in the AP poll. Only Maryland has more appearances all time among teams that haven't gotten there. If you want, this is actually in Wednesday's court report. The 5 schools with the most appearances all time without getting to number 1, they've all been as high as number 2, but they are Maryland with the most weeks in the AP top 25, then Purdue, then it's Utah, Minnesota, and LSU. None of those programs have ever been number 1 in the AP top 25.
I would have never guessed Maryland's never been number 1.
And the reason, if you're wondering, because I sent the stat out on Twitter on Tuesday, I believe, and then I had a couple people wonder, really? They won the national championship. I don't know why this is the case. Maybe it's because all the writers are traveling the day after the championship game and getting ballots in is just not feasible or whatever. There is not an AP top 25 poll that comes out after the NCAA tournament. The final AP top 25 poll every single season is released the Monday after Selection Sunday. So because Maryland won the 2002 national championship, it doesn't mean it got to be number 1 in the rankings. There was no poll. So that's why. If it had been, then it obviously would have been the case.
Which by the way, is ridiculous. You should have a postseason AP poll just so it's like, hey, here's the final thing. And by the way, yes, first off, most AP voters are at home during the national championship game. Secondly, you could have that done on Monday afternoon. I mean, there's like, okay, so like, am I going to have, let's say like last season on Monday afternoon, you could have your top 25 ballot done and just say, okay, either Gonzaga is going to be number 1 or number 2, and Baylor's going to be number 1 or number 2. And as soon as that game goes final, we'll adjust it and then hit send. It's not difficult to do, but these AP voters, I tell you, not all of them. Some of them are hard workers and they're focused. Appreciate them. But some of the other ones, lazy.
Sincerely lazy.
If I can rank 26 teams every single morning, you can rank 25 once a week without doing something stupid. I swear to God, in all the years I've been doing this, because the stupid things are not usually stupid things. They're mistakes. They're just things that people did because they didn't pay attention. In all the years I've been doing this every single morning, which is too many years at this point, there's only one time where I made a mistake, where I was like, ooh, I didn't realize that team played last night and lost last night. There's only one morning, and it was the morning after my birthday when I went out with some friends, my wife and some friends, on a Friday night, and I missed a result. And I noticed
you did not rank Marquette. Just say it.
It was actually something to do with Florida State, I think.
Okay.
But That's the only time I've ever made the mistake that an AP voter makes every single week. Just stay. How about this? If you genuinely don't have time to focus on it and turn in a sensible ballot, just don't do it. You don't have to. Nobody makes you be an AP voter. If you don't have the time to take it seriously, don't do the job.
He's talking to you, Jeff Borzello.
Yes.
You're officially on notice.
Did you see the quote? Do you see the quote, by the way, from Leonard Hamilton last night?
Share it.
How about this from Leonard Hamilton, the GOAT? He said, quote, "I give Coach Painter a lot of credit for assembling the most complete team I've played against in a long time. Sometimes you've got to call it like it is. This team has Final Four written all over it." That's from Leonard Hamilton.
That's a nice compliment. They are getting toward complete. They are not defensively good enough to where I think you can say they are a complete team. But certainly last night, if you're Leonard Hamilton and you're on the wrong end of a 93-65 loss, you're going to obviously say this is a complete team. And they looked good. FSU only shot 33% from three, and they were 46% inside the arc, and they didn't get the job done. They had 13 turnovers, which equaled Purdue, but Purdue has just so much more offensive firepower. Jaden Ivey was the best player on the floor. He had 18 points. He shot 4 of 6 from three, which is huge for both his NBA prospects, which we don't have to bore ourselves with at this point because we're in December, whatever. But for Purdue's long-term prospects as a just a killer team, if Jaden Ivey is really going to develop into a reliable perimeter shooter, then forget about it. He is going to be in the mix to win National Player of the Year. Right now, he's shooting 43.3% from three-point range. That's 30 attempts right now through 7 games for Purdue. We'll see if that can be sustained on an individual level. That's a little bit harder to forecast this early as opposed to what I talked about with Duke on the inverse about 20 minutes ago. But Ivey was awesome. Stefanovic, he's just a dude that looks like he's just going to give you 2 or 3 shots a game where if you're playing against Purdue, you're like, don't pass it to him. They pass it to him. Shot goes up. Oh, damn it. It's another 3. He's just that kind of player, man. Been there forever. Great shooter. Love watching this team. And Caleb First, the freshman, is blending in quite well. He's almost never going to be the first, second, or third best guy, but he just seems to give you enough to boost around Ivy, Stefanovic, obviously Edey, and Trevion Williams off the bench, who was quiet last night. This is why Purdue's awesome. Williams came off the bench as he does. He still might be a top 10 player in America. He gave you 8 points. It didn't matter. Purdue won easily, and that's why this team, it's just super fun to watch, and can't wait to see him play Iowa on Friday.
I mentioned that Florida State was down starting point guard, down starting center. Just real quick, they're down 3 players in the game. And let me be clear, I don't think that is why Purdue blew them out. I think Purdue would blow most people out right now. They look awesome. But Raekwon Evans is the point guard who was out, and it wasn't because of an injury. Just the saddest story. I don't know if you saw this. His brother died. Like 26, 27 years old, had a rare form of leukemia and died earlier or in November, and left behind like a young child. Just awful. And so obviously Florida State, those players and that staff have had their minds occupied with real life tragic things, and they were operating without their point guard who is going through an incredible loss. He is expected, I'm told, to be back in time for the next game, which I believe is against Syracuse. But if you were wondering why Florida State was shorthanded against Purdue, it wasn't strictly injuries. It was also because of some real life, just terrible stuff.
Yeah, there's a GoFundMe that I retweeted from Purdue's official account, which is obviously very nice of that program to do, but that's a heartbreaking story and understandable why he was not in the game last night. Don't think that would have made a difference, but our thoughts and prayers go out to Raekwon's family. So
before we get out of here, just to catch you up on the ACC Big Ten Challenge, it is just as non-competitive as the Gavitt games, but in a different way. The Big Ten has recovered nicely. Turns out all it needed was to play the ACC.
What's the tally at this moment? Are we at 4-2, 6-2? What is it?
6-2. 6-2 Big Ten. I'll run you through it. Iowa won at Virginia. And by the way, Iowa, I'm with you. I think Purdue is going to pack that building and handle them no problem and move to number 1 in the AP poll for the first time in history. But Keegan Murray leading the nation in scoring.
Is he above 25 right now?
24.6.
Yeah.
24.6 points, 8.9 rebounds, shooting 61.2% from the field. He's a 6'8 forward who is like, I don't want to say a perfect, prospect, because he's not, but he's a legitimate prospect. A 6'8 forward, length, can guard in space. If he can consistently make that 3-point shot, he's not doing it right now. Not bad, 34.5% from three. But if he gets that up to around 38, 39%, he'll be a first-round draft pick. And boy, he has taken a jump in this season. The season after, of course, Luka Garza is off to the NBA. So Iowa beat Virginia. Illinois beat Notre Dame. So the Big Ten started 2-0 in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Both those games were on Monday night. Then on Tuesday night, Ohio State beat Duke 3-0. Purdue beat Florida State 4-0. Syracuse beat Indiana, double overtime game. That was just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing?
That was, and that game just sucked me in way more than it needed to. Because I'm trying to watch all these games and finish up the court report and all this stuff, and then I find myself just like fully engaged on an Indiana-Syracuse game that it was high. It was like the worst high-scoring game I think I've ever seen in my life. Like, what did Indiana had 110 and still lost? How many teams score 110 and lose? I understand it's multiple overtimes, and obviously the most unforgettable multiple overtime game in the history of Syracuse's program. But just a weird and a necessary win for Syracuse, oh, by the way. But that was that just tractor beam sucked me right in, and good on Cuse for getting the win. But IU falls from the ranks of the undefeateds because of that loss.
Yeah, so Minnesota beat Pitt. That's another win for the Big Ten. Wake Forest beat Northwestern. Steve Forbes' team's off to like a 7-1 start. Rutgers beat Clemson. And so that means the Big Ten is up 6-2 in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And on Wednesday night, Michigan State is favored over Louisville. NC State's favored over Nebraska. Maryland's favored over Virginia Tech. Wisconsin is favored over Georgia Tech. Michigan's favored over North Carolina at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And Penn State is favored over Miami. So if things go as planned tonight, the favorites win, the Big Ten will finish 11-3 in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. The ACC stinks.
It's fifth at KenPom right now. If you look at if you sort out the Torvik rankings that eliminate preseason bias,
it's impossible to do.
Do you want to know, or should I wait? Should I have you wait just a couple more days?
I already know.
Oh, you got it done. Because you know why?
Because
our good buddy Bart Torvik listens to the podcast and tweeted out after he heard you didn't know how to do it. Did you see the tweet?
I do follow Bart. I did not see the tweet. But Jake Winderman sent me a direct message on Slack.
Not cool.
Explaining to me how to do it. And boy, was it eye-opening.
Woo!
I just changed the numbers.
That's right.
And then boom, it was like, look how awesome Wagner is or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, if you are in the nerd set that knows about Torvik but isn't familiar with this, if you want to get a sense, because right now, again, to remind viewers and listeners, when we talk about KenPom and we talk about Torvik and other predictive metrics, they are baking in previous program performance and preseason bias into their rankings, because that's obviously what you're going to try and do if you're predictive. But if you simply want to filter out and see how well a team has played to this point and eliminate the prior bias, if you go to barttorvik.com, and all you got to do is at the top of the page, you'll see a start date and an end date. Just change the start date to what's not the default. So it's 11/1/2021 is that. That's what filters in preseason bias. Just change that date to November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or whatever, and you will have it filter out to see how teams have played. So right now, based purely on performance and efficiency to this point, the 5 best teams in the country this season have been Arizona, then Gonzaga, then Purdue, then Baylor, then Houston. On the note of the ACC, though, it only has 3 teams in the top 40 to this point. That's what GP's talking about with the conference having a lot of issues. Virginia Tech's actually been the best performing team, even though it has 2 losses. It's 10th. Duke, with its loss, drops to 13th. And then you've got Florida State at number 35. In terms of overall conference rankings at KenPom, which still have predictive bias baked in, the ACC has already fallen to 5th. It's ahead of the Pac-12, but not by that much. And then there is some There's plenty of daylight between the Pac-12 at 6 and the WCC comfortably ahead of the American. WC is 7, and then the American is 8. ACC, it's gonna lose this Big Ten ACC challenge, which will be significant in the macro sense in terms of the non-conference is moving along here. We're getting some more league games coming in and getting introduced, but at a certain point, there are not going to be high quality options in the conference. You can make the case that Duke playing against Ohio State on Tuesday night was Duke's last chance to play a team that'll finish in the top 20 or 15 of KenPom for the entire season. And this is how non-conference scheduling can come back and bite you. Duke, if it wins the ACC and only loses 3 more games the rest of the season, then it's going to have a case to be a number 1 seed. That might well happen. But right now, the teams with 1 loss in the ACC are Duke, NC State, not projected to be an NCAA tournament team, doesn't have its best player for the entire season, Manny Bates. Georgia Tech right now is 68th at KenPom. Wake Forest, which is playing well. Shouts to C. Forbes. That was a nice win, a close win, really as good of a game as we had on Tuesday night against Northwestern there. Those are your 1-loss teams, but the likes of Virginia Tech, Florida State, 2 losses. Notre Dame's 3-3. Little concern already for a team that I thought might be good enough to make the tournament there. Syracuse got a win it needed to have. Virginia, 5-3 at this point. I'm just not sure. And then you got teams at the bottom, which won't be able to compete for much. Pittsburgh at 2-5, man. I mean, Minnesota ended a losing skid on the road that was 646 days old. And Ben Johnson has 1 player on the roster this season. I have something on this in the court report. How about this? Minnesota loses at home. It's 2-5. And I understand if you're a Pitt fan and you're dialed into a podcast on December 1st, shouts to you. We love you because this has got to be super frustrating. Ben Johnson, new Minnesota coach, first year, right? The only player he has on his roster this season who earned minutes previously at Minnesota is Eric Curry, who was a grad assistant, had left basketball, and then had to convince the coaching staff that he wanted to play 1 more season, had to prove it to them. He's actually earning some minutes here. You know him well because he's actually from Memphis. He's a wonderful story. But that Minnesota team, which has plenty of seniors, but a lot of transfers, goes into Pitt and wins a 1-point game at the end. I know Pitt's not that good, but to me, I looked at that game, that result, and I thought, man, this really is a reflection on just like ACC top to bottom. Rough night for them on Tuesday, rough night for them on Monday. It's not going to get much better. And I don't see how the ACC is going to have a situation here where you have the likes of Duke, FSU. We'll see what Louisville can do, and I'll give you the times and tips on these games for Wednesday in just a second. But Duke, FSU, maybe Louisville, Virginia Tech, maybe throw in 1 more team, Virginia, North Carolina. Like, it's going to need separation. You're going to have tiers, a top tier, top 4 or 5 teams that pull away to give the ACC its best chance at getting really good seeds. Right now, we sit here on December 1. You can document this and then go remind me when I've long forgotten about it when we get to March here. The ACC right now is looking like a 4-bid league. I will go on the record and say the league gets 5, but I think asking for more than 5 is borderline impossible at this point when you look at what the teams haven't done in non-conference play. You could salvage that to a minor degree by really pulling off some upsets in the ACC Big Ten Challenge on Wednesday. I've got my doubts about that. But yeah, this is certainly surprising for a league, Parrish, that has not been elite as of late. Last season, it was the 5th best league in America. Right now, it rates as the 5th best league in America. And in 2020, it was the 4th best league in America. The ACC, in fact, has not rated, again, per KenPom, as the number 1 conference in the country since 2006, 2007. Ironically, that was the year Duke was down. It got beat by VCU in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But it's been a while since this was an elite conference, and it's time we started talking about that a little bit more.
The ACC only has 1 team in the top 25 at KenPom right now. It's Duke. For some context, the SEC has 7 in the top 25. The Big Ten has 6. The Big 12 has 4. The Pac-12 has 3. The WCC has 2. The Big East also only has 1. Villanova.
If you rank, so you've got 1. Just off the top of your head, who do you trust? Not who you think is best, whatever. 2, 3, 4 ACC. Duke is obviously still going to be 1. Full strength right now for you. Pick them in order right behind the Blue Devils, 2, 3, 4 in the ACC. Who do you trust most long-term right now?
Florida State and maybe Virginia Tech. And that's crazy because Virginia Tech just lost 2 games in Brooklyn.
They did. They were, yeah. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Here are the games to know, by the way, on the topic of Virginia Tech. On Wednesday, we had a lot of hoops. I singled out these four, though. You've got Louisville at Michigan State, 7:15. Chris Mack returns to the sideline, his 6-game suspension, which was tied to what, Parrish? He doesn't want to say. We're on a live mic. Chris Mack had a 6-game suspension. I'll say it was tied to extortion.
I'm an expert on extortion.
He is. So Chris Mack will return.
I wish Dino would have just called me.
I know.
Just send a text. I could have talked him through it. We could have got this done together. I could have got 75 grand within 3 days. No problem. Dino just did too many missteps.
Too many. Louisville is going to play at Michigan State at 7:15 on Wednesday night. That's my most interested. There's plenty of games I want to watch. I'm just most interested to see how Louisville plays with Mack back in the lineup. A good opportunity for both those programs there. And if Louisville could win, it'd be good for them for the ACC. And on the site, we have our ACC Big Ten picks that either have been published or will be published shortly. If you're listening to this live and watching on the YouTube stream, I took Louisville to win straight up. You've got Virginia Tech at Maryland on ESPN2. So those are going to be side-by-side games. That's a good little 2-screen situation you got there. Virginia Tech at Maryland. The Terps could really use this kind of win. They've got fun upside, but let's see what they do against a good Virginia Tech team who's in a tight spot. Dropped a couple of games here and needs to certainly improve itself. Florida at Oklahoma is a game outside this, but Gators looking like top 15 kind of team right now, undefeated and look the part of a high seed to this point. They're going to play at Oklahoma, Porter Moser. This will be the first high-profile game, I guess, if you will, for the Sooners under Porter. We'll see what they can do in that spot. I don't know. We'll have to see. I do like their potential. They're 44th at KenPom. They're 6-1. They have a loss on a neutral to Utah State. They haven't played a top 50 opponent yet, though. We'll see. And I don't even know if Joe Castiglione, the AD, is going to be at this game because he's in the middle of trying to find himself a football coach there. So he'll be preoccupied. And then the other game from Wednesday night to know is Michigan at North Carolina, 9:15 on ESPN. And Michigan has not played up to its expectations. North Carolina, to a certain degree, has not played up to its expectations. I don't know I don't have the line in front of me or the over/under, but Michigan's been disappointing on defense. Carolina has been atrocious at times on defense. So I don't know what the over/under. I imagine this over/under is fairly high. I'm just guessing. But that'll be a very affirming win for either team that can get it. And then just real quick on Thursday, the only game that I think is of note is of a mid-major variety, but I think it's quite intriguing. That's St. Mary's at Utah State. That's a Thursday tip on CBS Sports Network at 9:00 Eastern. St. Mary's is favored on KenPom to win by 1 point. The Gales are 7-1. The only loss they have is the Maui championship game against Wisconsin. So we'll see if they continue the good news for the WCC. Meantime, Utah State has a stud in Justin Bean who has performed like one of the 15 best players in America to this point. We'll see if he can keep that up. Utah State opened with the loss to UC Davis, which, by the way, lost to an art school in California, a D2 or NAIA's art school. Utah State has not lost since then. They have a win over Oklahoma. Justin Bean right now is shooting 59% from 3-point range and 71% from 2-point range. So that is a 9:00 Thursday night tip on CBS Sports Network. The best game of the day will be on CBS SN, St. Mary's at Utah State.
Michigan is a 2.5-point favorite at North Carolina. The total is 151. Are you suggesting play the over?
I would definitely play the over in that game. That is lower than I would have anticipated. It feels inevitable that game is going over. Yes, for sure.
We got some nice 5-star reviews over on the Apple Podcast. Did I tell you about them?
You did not.
I suggested to the listeners on the previous podcast that if they too were fans of premarital sex, that they should go leave a 5-star review over at Apple Podcasts so that we could offset some of the 1-star reviews from people who are anti-premarital sex. Like, there's more of us than there are of them, and we need that to be reflected in the review. Like you can act like this is controversial. We're in the majority here. Most people love premarital sex. All right, this isn't some wildly unpopular opinion. Most people love premarital sex. But it's just like everything else, right? It's the loud minority yelling and putting 1-star reviews on. So I asked people, I said, hey, do us a favor. If you like premarital sex, if you've ever had it, whether you liked it or not, if you ever had it.
You want to have it.
Do you want to have it? Do you want to have premarital sex? Then go
We
leave a
want the incels. Come on over.
then if you've had it or you have a desire to someday have it, go leave a 5-star review over at Apple Podcasts. So I was clicked on the some of the reviews last night. Let me read you a couple of them. This one comes from Cole. He wrote, by far my favorite podcast. I listen to several, including ones like the Talking Baseball and whatnot, but Eye on College Basketball is the only one that I actively have to stop what I'm doing to listen to. It's fantastic, even if I don't agree with every opinion you guys share. Also, I'm an avid fan of premarital sex. Okay, so that was that one. Here's one. If you like college basketball and premarital sex, then buddy, I have the perfect podcast for you. This podcast is the highlight of my Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thank you for keeping me entertained during the dumbest pandemic of my lifetime. I also love your refusal to acknowledge RJ Barrett. And if Nebraska wins 3 games in Pinnacle Bank this season, you should do a bonus episode. We will.
3 games? Bonus episode for 3 wins for Nebraska and Pinnacle Bank?
I was just listen. The guy gave us a 5-star review. I was trying to give back. Here's another one. This one, this helps me stay informed on college basketball with some levity entertainment. I stay in the know of things like the Big Bank Challenge. That comes from TJ.
Dude, I didn't realize this was happening until after the podcast publishes it's going live on YouTube, and then the chat replay goes. So I went and I checked. Dude, there were like 4 or 5 people within the first 5 minutes that were like, GP Big Bank Challenge, GP do the Big Bank.
I saw. I'll do it one day. I saw a really good one a couple of nights ago. I should have bookmarked it. I never bookmark them.
That's probably the wise choice, my friend.
I want my Instagram reels to be nothing but Big Bank challenges because I don't really care about the other stuff except golf shots. The only thing I watch on Instagram reels is golf shots and Big Bank challenges. And I was like, how do I filter out all this other nonsense that I don't want? And somebody said, well, if you like the Big Bank challenges, then it'll understand that that's what you like, and it'll just give you more Big Bank challenges. And the problem with that is I think it's weird for me to be out there liking a bunch of Big Bank challenges.
That's right.
I don't think I can do that.
You are golf shots and Big Bang challenges. I don't do this whole
thing. That's all I want to do. I wake up.
All mine would be like drum solos and ski jumps. we are diverging, my friend. I can sit and watch drum videos and guitar solo videos endlessly.
No, I just want to watch golf shots. There's these things on Instagram Reels. I don't know. They have audio from an actual golf broadcast. I don't know whether it was Tiger Woods or whatever it was, but the announcer says, it's one of the on-course reporters, and it says, this is going to be a nice little comfortable 9-iron for him. These people are going to go nuts when he hits this one. And then you hear the crowd go, whoo, as soon as so it's like a real shot. Like it's probably like Tiger Woods, from 140 with a 2-shot lead at the Masters or something like that. I don't really know what it is, but people take that audio and then they put their buddies or themselves like just duffing a shot. It's just like, hitting the ball 3 feet or missing it or slicing it way over here. It's like, this is going to be a nice little comfortable 9-iron. They're going to go nuts when he hits this one. And it's like, woo. And it just rolls the ball. And I laugh every time. It's so funny to me. That and Big Bang challenges is all I ever want to watch, but I can't like Big Bang challenges because I feel like I think it'd be weird. Like you got these young women out there and they'd be like, why is this Gary Parrish CBS liking all my Big Bang challenges? So I don't do it. I don't like any of them, but I do enjoy the comments.
And I'm loving that this is live right now. By the way, there was a review from I think 6 weeks ago from a 60-year-old woman that it was just so good. It was so good. It's like maybe like 10 or 12 back, but someone had directed me to it. And I can't remember who you are. I don't have the reviews up in front of me, but your review made me smile. It was very funny. So it was yet another person surprised by when they saw you on camera for the first time, your appearance overall, which seems to be a running theme, which I also very much enjoy.
Here's something I noticed, because when you're on TV, first off, I never look at myself because I hate myself. But when you're on TV, you're supposed to, you sit there, you sit there. And you're paying attention, you're laughing at if somebody tries to say something funny. It's pretty structured, but this is obviously not structured. I mean, look, And one of the things I noticed, and other people have noticed as well, I see it in the comments. I have like a little nervous tick where I'm constantly right here.
No, but you're using the wrong finger right now. That's not what.
I'm like this all the time.
There you go.
So I don't know that I do that, but
Really?
not until we started, and I'm looking like it's impossible for me to talk without seeing myself.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming I've been sitting around at dinner tables and bars my entire life, like having conversations with people and constantly just like this. What do you think's going on with me?
I don't know, but are you trying to grow a Timmy stash?
Like, what do you think I'm doing?
I don't know. Listen, I don't know, but I like the fact that it's nice and comfortable and casual. I'm also blown away by like I've known you to be you and to know what you look like, and it always amuses me that people have this vision of what I get it. Like sometimes before the era. By the way, this is the first college basketball podcast ever to be live streamed on YouTube video. Don't forget about that.
Did you see we got a note from a guy like from Spain? And he was like, I just think you guys should know.
And he's a wonderful. If the gentleman is watching or listening now, I'm not being serious. Like that's kind of the bit of the podcast here or there. But I believe I saw someone was watching this in Australia at almost 2 a.m. You people are absolutely amazing. The point I was going to make though is I hear you. When you would listen to when I would listen to podcasts 8-10 years ago and I wouldn't know what a host would look like and you see him for the first time, it's always interesting how the visual doesn't match sometimes what you have in your head with the voice there. But with you, I've never seen it with as many people as you. You look like how you sound like to me, and always like you've always looked like that. And except when you opted to have hair, which by the way, Parrish can have hair if he wants, but he just chooses not to. I wish he'd grow it back, but he just doesn't.
I had a bald spot. I noticed it. I was watching a game that I happened to be attending, sitting courtside, and the camera is going back and forth, left to right, whatever. And it's scanning me every time because I'm sitting right there. And I'm like, oh, wow. I had no idea I had that bald spot. And I went to my wife and I was like, because you don't see the back of your head. Like you don't see the back of your head. And so I went to my wife and I was like, hey, why didn't you tell me I had a bald spot to this degree? And she's like, I didn't want to be the one to point it out. She's being nice, right? And after that, I was just like, I would rather be bald than have a bald spot. And so here I am, for better or worse, probably worse.
We can get out of here, but before we do that, I need to congratulate you. Why don't you turn that hat around? Can you turn the hat around so people can see? So as GP takes off my man, as people well know, huge Mets fan, you got yourself Max Scherzer. So congrats on that. But I got to admit, as we wrap the pod, aren't you wired to believe that it's going to be like Scherzer pitches 14 games next season and he's just not what he was? Isn't that how you are wired? Like there's no way he's going to be the same pitcher for the Mets as he has been for most of the past decade.
I am wired to believe he will be hurt in July.
Yeah.
It's like you have this is part of being a Mets fan. You have this weird thing that happens where you can't feel positive about anything because you just assume it's going to go wrong. And so what I'm like I saw somebody tweet, like a baseball guy tweet that the Mets might have the 2 best pitchers in baseball, period. Like the best, Jacob deGrom, and the second best, Max Scherzer. And when I read that, I don't get excited. You know what? I go, they're going to get hurt. That's no way to live life. Like when you can't even get excited about good news because you assume it'll end poorly. What is wrong with you?
I know.
Got one more review here.
Okay, what do we got?
Person says, I promise to pre-sex many, many times with many, many people. 5-star review.
This has been wonderful. We went a little longer than even expected, but a little fun at the end. Thank you to everyone again in the comments. You guys, listen, I hope you come back and develop a little bit of a community there. I think that's absolutely fabulous there. But yeah, Friday, 10 a.m. is as long as there's no emergency pod situation, and I certainly hope not at the start of December. We will be back then, talk about whatever has happened in the next couple of days, and then obviously preview the weekend. Again, I'm going to send this out one more time. I might remind at the beginning of the podcast on Friday. We did have a couple suggestions when I asked for them in the YouTube comments before we live streamed about what Parrish and I should, like some sort of playful bet that we should have on the line for the season-long picks. And they say we shouldn't respond to every single comment as it comes in. So if I'm laughing, it's because someone has said something funny or Nada who has put something on the screen. Anyway, the point is, if you have an idea, think about it. Friday, we'll try and decide once and for all what Parrish and I should have on the line here, because I want to get something down before, my lead gets too big. I need Parrish to have some sort of hope that he can come back and overtake me. So in the comments on Friday episode, if you're watching live, suggest what Parrish and I should put on the line, and we'll seriously consider it, and we'll get it figured out in the next couple of days.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Lawrence Roberts. Legend. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to the Ion College Basketball Podcast in the middle of the dumbest pandemic of my lifetime. You see this new variant? Where'd this new variant come from? What are we doing with this new variant?
I know.
What in the world?
You're learning the Greek alphabet, my man.
What are we doing? What are we doing with this new variant? Good Lord. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts. If you've had premarital sex, or if you would like to do it one day, go leave a 5-star review. This is very important. Go leave a 5-star review over at Apple Podcasts, and make sure you subscribe here at YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, go subscribe on YouTube. Just type in Ion College Basketball in the search. It'll pop right up. Hit the bell button. I don't know why. I'm unconvinced that works.
It works, and we want to tell people that it works. It works. Now, because listen.
This is one of those things like I just have to take it on faith.
You need to ask Bart Torvik is what you need to do.
I just figured out how to sort over there. I just figured out my sorting options over at Bart Torvik. December is off to a great start. Smash the like button at YouTube. You got consent? What would Brandon Davies do?
He'd smash it.
He would smash it. He'd smash it. Brandon Davies, you want to go to a Final Four? You want to smash the like button? He'd smash that like button. If Brandon Davies is willing to sacrifice a year of college basketball just to smash, what is your excuse? You don't have one. Go smash the like button. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.